Hello and welcome. In this online module, we'll cover the topic of ICT governance. This important topic covers how a large organization manages its ICT infrastructure projects and services. The goal is to ensure that the organization's ICT needs are met now and going into the future, as well as complying with any legislative requirements. This includes transparent processes for ICT decision-making, as well as lines of accountability and responsibility. We'll begin by defining governance using the definition of the ICT governance skill in SFIA version 6. We'll also explore the significance of this skill based on the extent to which it is a required skill found in Australian ICT position descriptions and its relationship to other related SFIA skills. We'll also look at governance frameworks, including both ICT governance frameworks as well as other frameworks used more generally in business to manage quality, process maturity, and business performance. Finally, we'll consider a case study examining university ICT governance. This will include examining both a faculty-based and a shared services model, as well as the attributes and initiatives associated with effective ICT governance. When first encountering the word governance, we often think of national governments and their role in setting a national agenda and providing for a prosperous, safe, and equitable future for its citizens. As national leaders allocate resources to funded projects, institutions, and initiatives, it's important for them to ensure that these are well aligned with the national agenda, operate in accordance with legal requirements, and in the best interests of the public. In a similar fashion, ICT governance requires business leaders to ensure that technology use is strategically aligned with business goals and that ICT resources are being allocated and utilized effectively. This includes managing the risks associated with ICT use, as well as the selection, use, and decommissioning of ICT within the enterprise. SFIA version 6 defines the ICT governance skill, or GOVN, as the establishment and oversight of an organization's approach to the use of information, digital services, and associated technology. This includes responsibility for provision of digital services, levels of service and service quality which meet current and future business requirements, policies and practices for conformance with mandatory legislation and regulations, strategic plans for technology to enable the organization's business strategy, and transparent decision-making leading to justification for investment with appropriate balance between stakeholder benefits, opportunities, costs, and risks. ICT governance knowledge is required by many ICT positions. For example, this visualization shows the relationship between various ICT positions based on SFIA skills that those positions generally require. It was based on SFIA skill sets associated with various ICT positions as self-reported by ACS members in the ICT Skills White Paper. A link to this white paper is found in the reading for this module. Each node in the diagram is for a given ICT position. The size of the node indicates the betweenness centrality associated with the given position description. In network analysis, betweenness centrality is a measure of the number of shortest paths that the node is on between other nodes. Effectively, a higher betweenness centrality leads to better job mobility between positions based on the number of skills the positions have in common. The thickness of the line between any two nodes is an indication of the number of SFIA skills that a pair of nodes have in common. It's possible to consider a similar visualization based on the SFIA skills themselves. Here, node size is an indication of how frequently a SFIA skill occurs in position descriptions. The thickness of the link between any two SFIA skills indicates the number of times those SFIA skills are found together in the full set of position descriptions. Analysis shows that ICT governance, or GOVN, occurs with great frequency and is therefore an important skill associated with many ICT positions. It's most commonly paired with the consultancy skill, or CNSL. It's also common for the ICT governance skill to be paired with information management, or IRMG, relationship management, or RLMT, program management, or PGMG, and systems development management, or DLMG. In addition to reading the description of the ICT governance skill in the SFIA 6 documentation, you'll also want to read the description of these associated skills. It's also appropriate to review what you know about other frameworks for managing quality and business performance, as these are often practiced in the context of ICT governance. Such frameworks include the Capability Maturity Model, Balanced Scorecard, and Six Sigma. Explicit ICT governance frameworks include AS 8015, ISO IEC 38500, and COBIT. Links to these can be found in the reading for this module. To explore how ICT governance is implemented, we'll consider a case study reported in a research paper written by Michael Hicks and Brian Perrin from the School of Accounting at Curtin University, and Gran Pervan from the School of Information Systems. To prepare for the test for this module, you'll need to read their paper, which is listed on the Blackboard site for this unit. Their research considered how ICT governance is implemented at a large Australian university that was undergoing a major restructuring of its ICT governance approach. The goal of their research was to identify effective processes and structures, and to establish best practice examples of university ICT governance. The methodology they adopted was to interview university leaders, including the Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic, Pro-Vice Chancellors, Deans, Heads of School, the Director of Corporate Services, and other university leaders. Based on these interviews, themes were identified from interview transcripts that characterized the role, purpose, and approaches to governance as perceived by senior university leaders. University documents, policies, and memos related to university ICT governance were also examined. Other stakeholders, including teaching, research, and administrative staff, were surveyed to gauge their perception regarding the effectiveness of ICT governance at the institution. Initially, each faculty was responsible for its own ICT needs, although ultimate oversight and accountability resided with the Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic, who worked in collaboration with an Information Plan and Advisory Committee that was responsible to oversee ICT at the institution. The Director of IMS was responsible for the needs of the library. An executive faculty dean, such as the Dean for the Faculty of Business, worked with an ICT faculty group to address the needs of stakeholders from that faculty. Similar structures were found in other faculties like the Faculty of Science and Engineering and the Faculty of Humanities. Subsequently, the university reorganized its ICT governance structure, adopting a shared services model. In the new governance structure, the Vice Chancellor is the university executive responsible for setting strategic institutional goals. These guide the agenda and decisions of an ICT strategy and planning committee, which makes recommendations to the DVC academic and the Chief Information Officer, a new university appointment. The CIO is accountable for institution-wide ICT decisions, operations, and support. The CIO identifies needs of individual faculties through consultation with ICT faculty subgroups that represent the needs of teaching, research, and admin staff from their faculty. The CIO also manages an enterprise-wide architecture subgroup and another subgroup responsible for strategic projects. A number of themes supporting good ICT governance emerged from this research. The first of these themes is governance mechanisms. At the institution examined in the case study, the appointment of the CIO was the principal governance mechanism in the revised governance structure. Having a single individual that is accountable for successful ICT operations that support the strategic and business needs of the entire institution is key to the success of this approach. The need for relationship management was a further theme that emerged from this research. For example, the corporate services and research arms of the university were protective of data sources that they controlled. Effective management of relationships like these proved to be necessary for effective ICT governance. The need to manage relationships through consultation with users of ICT services, including academics, students, and professional staff, was also apparent. Effective ICT governance also requires management support. This includes having the support of the Vice Chancellor and other senior university leaders. This is further strengthened through the oversight and direction provided by the ICT Strategy and Planning Committee, operating under an established ICT governance framework. Management support also led to transparent ICT spending and resource allocation. This has served to establish the credibility of the ICT governance structure at the institution. A principal benefit of ICT governance in general, and of the shared services model in particular, is the strategic alignment of ICT with the business goals of the institution. In the revised governance structure, strategic alignment occurs at a senior level, and through ex officio appointments to management committees of the university, such as to the University Council. A principal outcome of the ICT Strategy and Planning Committee was an ICT enabling plan to ensure that the strategic alignment of ICT at the institution was aligned with teaching, research, and community goals. The shared services model was found to provide for the effective use of ICT resources. In particular, centralization eliminated unnecessary ICT services that were duplicated in the various faculties. Improving ICT governance was also seen as a means to manage ICT risk. This includes streamlining responsibilities and accountabilities at a senior level for ICT risk management. Effective ICT governance means that ICT performance can be monitored and controlled using established metrics. This includes metrics related to website visibility and usage, downtime of the learning management system, and other metrics from systems like the finance management system. Finally, the CIO, together with the Deputy Vice Chancellor, is accountable for all ICT at the institution. As such, they're always considering the future direction of ICT, working strategically in the best interest of the university. At the institution, the revised approach to ICT governance led to significant improvements. These were characterized by strong executive buy-in using a well-defined ICT governance framework, together with clear lines of responsibility and accountability, using data to inform monitoring control of ICT operations and services. Challenges at the institution include the ongoing consultation and communication with ICT end users, including teaching, research, and administrative staff. To prepare for the online test for this module, it's important that you read the SFIA documentation for the ICT governance skill, as well as for the related skills that were covered in this recording. It's also very important that you download and read the case study paper by Hicks, Pervan, and Perin. The paper contains additional insights that were not covered in this recording, and you'll need this information for the online test. It's a good read, and I think you'll find it interesting.